So talking about what's going on inside the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, can you live in that world without a third party? Well, there's some things that you can do, but I just want to be clear that they're not a backup, and we'll go through what they are. Retention policies, these are a feature of Purview. These are settings that you can apply to all products or individual products. You can apply them to specific users, you can apply them to specific sites, groups, all types of things, all the different things you can select within your tenant. You can exclude stuff too. And what you can then do is say, actually, I want to keep it for this long, or I want to keep it for this long and then delete it, for example. And they aren't a backup, but they are a good way of catching some of these kind of activities that we're talking about. You do need to have a Microsoft 365 Business Premium license for those features, and it needs to be applied to everyone who is in scope for the policy. And they only start protecting data after the policy is created, which is key. So they're not a backup. They're good for legal. They're good for subject access request. They're not a restore my files to last Tuesday or point in time. There are gaps. Things like voice messages won't get captured in there. It says complex for junior admins, but if anyone's been in Purview, it's complex for any admin of any time, I think, to be honest with you. And ultimately, they do use up your storage quota as well. So if you're putting lots of data in SharePoint and then you turn these kind of features on, just keep in mind it's going to keep a log of everything. That might eat some data up as well. Let's just quickly talk about what the Microsoft offer to wrap up this section. Microsoft have got their own 365 backup. The good and the bad here is that it keeps it inside Microsoft's ecosystem. It stores it in Azure. That might be a good thing. That might be a bad thing, depending on what you want to do. There's some features that are missing that I think are important. No team support, no file level granular restore for OneDrive. So if somebody asks me to restore a file in their OneDrive, I have to restore everything. It's not great. And it's billed at a flat rate per gigabyte as well, rather than per user. That makes a big difference. So just finishing up on this section, what have we got? We've got a mishmash of policies and places to go, defaults that potentially mean we could lose data. Retention policies help, they're not a backup though, and the data lives within the Microsoft ecosystem. You either like that or you don't. I'm going to turn over to you, Harpal, now. We can go into Acronis.
Thank you so much, Liam. Yeah, that was really interesting in terms of just understanding and differentiating the difference between retention and backup, because it's more often that I get that, well, I've got retention, I don't need backup, but it's always important to emphasize the difference. Retention is basically like your deleted items. That is not a backup solution. I've been working in the data protection industry for over 12 years, and really what I'm seeing repeatedly right now, 365 is the most real example of where data is being lost. Not a theoretical risk, not a what if, it's actual organizations losing OneDrive content, Teams conversations, critical SharePoint data, and unfortunately only realizing until it's too late. And yeah, keen to just get the audience thinking, and I'd love you to think about it as your environment today. If someone deleted a senior leader's mailbox today, or a finance user's OneDrive, how quickly could you recover it? How confident are you that you could recover everything? Because for most organizations, the truth is 365, Microsoft 365, it feels like a safety net. It feels like it's in the cloud, so it's safe. But just because it's in the cloud, it doesn't automatically mean protected. And it definitely doesn't mean recoverable. And that's what I'm hopefully going to be able to show you in the next couple of minutes, is why 365 data loss happens, why it's not always hackers, why it's often people and process. And really the easiest fix is a proper third-party backup solution that sits outside of Microsoft. And the key outcome, by the end, you'll know whether you should take advantage of a 30-day free trial, because it's one of those areas where you only appreciate the value once you've actually tested the restores and the search functionality yourself.
Yeah.
And this slide is important because it removes opinion out of the conversation. This is Microsoft's own language, and it's one of the most misunderstood realities in 365. Microsoft, they do a great job at keeping the platform running, resilience, uptime, infrastructure scale, but what they don't do is accept full responsibility of your data in the way most customers assume, and it's in plain English, really. It's Microsoft are responsible for the availability of the service. You are responsible for the protection and recovery of the data that you put into it. And this is not me saying it, that's Microsoft saying it in their own terms. The agreement language is effectively, service can have disruptions. Microsoft isn't liable for disruptions or loss you suffer as a result. And they regularly recommend you back up your content with third-party services. It's a bit of a get out of jail card moment. And what makes it risky, right, is 365 is so reliable day to day. Most organizations don't test restores until the day they need it. And the day you need it is the day that the CEO is on the phone asking, can you get it back? Can you explain retention policy? So the message is simple. Built-in capability is not the same as data protection. And it ties in with the next slide. Because Microsoft's own language is, the language spells out where the responsibility sits, really. They're not responsible for data lost. Backup is the customer's responsibility. And the bullet points, look, they basically say three things. First, services change. Things get restricted, changed, removed, updated, sometimes based on the region or the licensing. Secondly, outages happen, disruptions happen. Microsoft isn't liable for the knock-on effect. And third is the key line. You're responsible for backing up the content stored on the services because it may be inaccessible during outages. And I'm not here to read terms and conditions. I'm really here to tell you the practical impact. Because when an organization loses their 365 data, it's usually because either someone's deleted it and they didn't realize it until it's outside of the recovery window. Someone's left, the data attached to their account is gone, and a compromise happens. The attacker deletes or encrypts the identity layer. In some cases, you do get misconfiguration or policy changes, which create unexpected deletion. But I think, the key question really is, if your recovery plan depends on retention behavior you haven't tested, is that a plan or is that hope, really?
Exactly, yeah.
Because the organizations that do well are the ones who treat 365 just like any other critical system. They back it up independently, they test the restores, and they can prove recovery. Which brings us to identity, because the next slide about that part is, if it's compromised, that compromises everything as well. Next slide, please. And this slide is really about the thing most people forget to protect, which is identity. Microsoft Entra ID is the front door to everything in 365. If someone gains the wrong access here, or if an admin mistakenly happens to be able to give wrong access, the blast radius is massive. If it's compromised, the entire organization is compromised. And when you look at the risks, accidental deletion of users or groups, privilege escalation, ransomware, insider attack, misconfiguration, audit compliancy failures. So look, why this matters is, when you lose a mailbox, it's painful. When you lose a OneDrive, it's painful. But when an identity is compromised, when it's misconfigured, attackers can lock out legitimate admins. They can create new privileged accounts, delete users' objects, wipe evidence or logs. And that's why we're releasing Entra ID protection in June. And it will be included in the per gig cost that Liam's already mentioned, because identity is now one of the most targeted parts of the stack. So again, I always ask questions just to get people thinking. If someone deleted a group that controls access to your finance SharePoint site, how long would it take you to restore both the group and the access model exactly as it was? And that's what identity backup is really about. Fast rollback, audit readiness, and the ability to recover from mistakes or abuse. Next slide, please, Liam. And this is where it stops being theory. The real incident documented. Sorry, actually, next slide after this. Ooh. Well, I actually had a slide about a real life scenario, which was 1,200 365 accounts that were deleted. And it was a IT contractor who accessed the company system, and he deleted over 1,200 of the company's 1,500 365 user accounts. So the company was effectively shut down. Email, contacts, calendars gone for large parts of the organization. Customers and vendors couldn't reach their employees. The actual problem, recovery impact, dragged on for months. Stated recovery costs were about $500,000. And the reason why I like this story is because you're not talking about North Korean super hackers. This is simply a bad lever. It's an insider access misuse story, and that can happen at any organizations. And actually, it reminds me of another one scenario that I had last summer. We had a company contact us last summer. They were looking for 365 backup, and I always want to find out why now, what's changed. And one of their users in their legal team left in March. The user stored large chunk contracts in their OneDrive. Unfortunately, nobody realized until June that the key contracts they were missing. By then, the user account, the content, that had all been purged by Microsoft. The clients had to go to, the organizations had to go back to the client asking for copies of the contracts that really they should be able to produce instantly. And that's reputational impact, right? That's not just inconvenience. So again, you know, if you had a senior employee leave tomorrow, could you guarantee that you'd still have access to everything that they owned, even if nobody noticed it for 90 days? And look, if the answer is I'm not sure, then this is why you implement third-party backup solutions. So what do you do without this turning into a 6-month project? You keep it simple. Acronis protects what people lose in 365. We protect Exchange Online, OneDrive, Teams, SharePoint. It's designed to be straightforward to deploy and restore from. And 3 things I'm always keen to highlight. 1, it's outside of Microsoft. You're backing up from Microsoft into the Acronis cloud platform. So if an identity is compromised, if the data deleted inside of Microsoft, you have that copy in a different system. Secondly, it's simple to run. Search is built in. So when you have someone that says, find me that email, that file, that Teams content, you're not hunting through retention policies. You're searching the backup set for that phrase, for that name, for that file name. And again, it's simple to price up. There's unlimited cloud storage for 365, and that's what finance team like. They like predictable costs. They like things that are easy to price up as well. Within the Acronis service is the ability to incorporate free anti-malware scanning of your 365 backups, because backups can be a hiding place for malware if you don't scan them. So, final question, I promise you. If you can confidently restore 365 data, if you can't confidently restore 365 data and you can't do it quickly, is your 365 environment really protected, or is it just hosted? I encourage people to take advantage of the 30-day free trial. Use it to do one thing, and most importantly is test the restore, test the search, because once you've done that, then you'll immediately know whether you've removed a major business risk or not as well. And I'm sure people have got questions, but yeah, just some high level ones. If you lost a mailbox, could you restore it in under an hour? If someone left and their OneDrive disappeared, would you be able to notice before it's too late? And if Entra ID was compromised, do you have a way to roll back identity changes and prove what happened? Unfortunately, if you're unsure on any of these questions, don't wait for the incident. Take the 30-day free trial, validate the recovery when it's calm, not when it's chaos and it's too late.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. I think some really interesting points in there. I think you started off on the exact line that I would take, that you do have to treat this a bit like if you had a server and you were storing files in the corner, you would back that up and you would be making sure that you didn't lose data. I think it's just, as you said earlier as well, it's education, right? It's understanding
Absolutely.
that there is retention, there are gaps, not everything is created equally. There's different things that different admins can do that can cause things to accelerate or decelerate timelines of data being lost. It's a real minefield, and I think if anybody was able to answer that question and say, yes, I confidently feel I have the ability to not lose any data, please let me know who you are, because I would love to work with you and understand how you achieve that, if I'm honest with you. So no, thank you for that, Harpal. That was really interesting.